So I'm filming with the Sony AX700 and the Sennheiser MKE 440 microphone. The camera is in full auto mode, which basically means it's doing auto gain and auto iris and auto audio gain, and it's the audio gain which I'm most interested in. The microphone, the Sennheiser MKE 440, has three stages of gain, and not to be confused with the gain of the picture gain on the camera. The AGC is gain for picture, not gain for audio. Don't let that catch you out. Anyway, currently the microphone is set to the lowest gain, which in theory should mean the camera preamps will be doing more work, which means possibly much more noise. If I stop talking and you listen for a moment. Is there hiss and such happening? Just looking at the heads-up display of the left and right channel, I can see that's quite a high noise floor. So I'm going to go ahead and set. So I'm pretty sure this is negative 20 dB. So it's a cold signal, which the camera will be boosting, complete with noise. Let's put it the Sennheiser MKE 440 to the 0 dB. I'm just about to do that now. Okay, so the MKE 440 is now at 0 dB. Let's have a listen. Again, just on the heads-up display, I can see quite a high noise floor, but I can also see a much stronger signal coming through when I'm talking, which is not necessarily what you want, because obviously the EBU standard is for, was it negative 12 or is that 70? There's negative 12 and negative 18. I can see this is peaking very close to 0 dB. I don't know if there's an onboard limiter and such on this camera, but the fact I can see the noise floor is quite a bad sign, I think. But again, this is at 0 dB. I've got a feeling tweaking it up to the last setting on the microphone is plus 20 dB, so it'll be like a really hot signal going to the camera. I'm not convinced it's going to make much difference, but let's see if the noise floor audibly decreases. So let me just put the plus 20 dB. Yeah, and I can, whoa, yeah, I can see that that's a really hot signal, and yeah, whoa. If this camera hasn't got an onboard limiter, this is going to be sounding terrible. I can just see from the onboard meters there that it's crashing into the top end, and I'm not projecting my voice. I'm just talking at a very normal volume. And if I'm quiet for a second and we have a listen. Interestingly, I do think the noise floor is a little bit quieter, but only by maybe a couple of segments of whatever they represent on the heads-up display there. So I think on balance probably the 0 dB is the best, but let's just cycle back through them. So I'm back to 0 dB. This is the middle setting on the MKE 440. But again, I can see the auto audio gain is pumping up the noise floor when I'm quiet. be interesting to see what this sounds like in headphones. And then the final setting, I believe it's negative 20 dB, is this setting, and I mean the noise floor is almost, it looks like the noise floor is almost as high as the signal of, you know, the signal you want to be recording, which is my voice. Well, you might not want to be recording my voice, but for the purposes of this test, I want to be recording my voice, and it doesn't seem much louder than the noise floor, judging from the meters on the heads-up display there. So this is probably not the setting you want. I think if you really have to use the auto audio gain on the AX700 with the MKE 440, I think the 0 dB, again, just visually, I obviously don't have my headphones on, so I don't really know what you're hearing, but the 0 dB looks like I'm getting the hottest signal without crashing too close to 0 dB, although it's, yeah, there's a few red markers there. So yeah, hopefully there's a limiter on this camera. So yeah, obviously probably the best thing you want to do is go into the settings and figure out the best manual setting for the audio. I'm not sure if I can do that while it's recording. Let's have a look. If I press menu, oh, it looks like I can actually do some things. Hang on. Need to be behind the camera to be doing the things, if it actually lets me do them while it's recording, which it may or may not. Let's have a look down to audio. Oh, yeah, so I can switch it to manual 28. Menu to end, okay. Okay. So now, yeah, I can see that's quite a hot signal. And I can still see the noise floor is quite high. But this may be a case of now, if I set the microphone up to be quite hot at the plus 20 dB, which I'll do now. So this is the manual setting on the AX700, it's at 28. I can see that's a pretty hot signal coming off the mic. It's crashing into 0 dB quite often, and I'm not even shouting. Let's just see what the background noise is like. Okay, but now I'm going to, since it's selected a kind of a default manual setting of 28, I'm going to half that. Let's put it down to 16 as a nice digital number, isn't it? Let's just go into menu again. Into audio record level, manual, let's take that down, 16, so that's about halfway. Let's just escape out of the menu there. Okay, so again, the microphone is at plus 20 dB, so it's a nice hot signal coming off the microphone. The manual setting is now at about half, and I can still see actually, yeah, I can see the noise floor is decreased. I can still see that it's still a very hot signal. I'm still very close to the top end, very close to crashing 0 dB. Although, yeah, so, and like I say, because SEMT and EBU, it's like negative 12 or negative 18. Dialogue is normally recorded, you know, nowhere near 0 dB on the, you know, on the upper limit. So let me just tweak that down further. Let's maybe go down to, oh, I don't know. I'd say another. I want to go down like another 6 dB, but I don't know if that's dB in the if that represents dB in the menu or not. But let's try going down to 10. So it was on 16, it's now on 10. Let me just escape out of the menu, now that's set. Okay, so this is now the MKE 440, the Sennheiser, on top of the AX700, which has a manual manual audio gain setting of 10, whatever that scale represents. I really don't know, and I don't know, it's just 10. And I can see that, you know, I'm maybe a foot away from the microphone and I'm getting what looks like a good clean signal on my voice. I'm not too close to 0 dB, so there's room for me to shout, and you'll get a bit of dynamic range recorded. And if I'm quiet, hopefully, because we've got a nice hot signal coming off of the microphone, that if I'm quiet you won't get too much of the camera preamp hiss. Let's have a listen. How does that sound? On the meters, there's nothing registering at all when I'm not talking, so it's not pumping up background noises. Be interested if you could hear those children out there, because that's not registering there. Yeah, so obviously there's upsides and downsides to setting the audio manually. It does mean, for instance, if I swap out the MKE 440 for the radio mics, I'm not necessarily going to know what level they're going to record at. And I'll just, you know, if you forget what you're doing and what you've got plugged in and all that kind of thing, you need to keep track of what's going on. So, you know, but isn't that what professionals do? We're never in a hurry, right? Okay, so this, just to summarise, this is the Sony AX700. Picture is in full auto mode. The audio is in manual, just set down to the number 10, whatever that represents in Sony land. So manual audio gain, connected to the MKE 440, which is on its hottest output level, which I believe is plus 20 dB. So that's like the third setting on the microphone in terms of gain. And just once more, this is what it sounds like when I shut my mouth. Well, hopefully that's been useful, and if you haven't learned anything, well, at least I have, because I've played around with this camera and I now know that in theory, judging from the meters on the screen, I can get a good result with the MKE 440 with the camera set at a manual audio gain level of 10, and shouldn't have too much of the camera's preamp hiss, but again, until I review that back, I won't actually know. So until I bother to upload my next video.